Hello.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your boy Jamsys, and we're playing RTA in the new season just because. I did finish my placements though, and I did play a bit to get into what's this rank called? Masters, just because I wanted double pre-bans. And yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and play a few matches. But yeah, if you haven't noticed, my win rate's pretty bad because there's a few reasons for this actually. The people that are playing RTA right now are basically all the people at the top and all the people who really like RTA. So I personally find climbing RTA very difficult in the preseason. And I honestly had like a 5 loss streak right after placements. So that was like kind of not it, but whatever. We're just gonna keep pushing. My opponent first picks Conquer Lace here, you know, pretty common from the RTA infographic somehow. So I pick Aiden and DJB just because they're pretty good into aggressive style drafts, because Aiden, you know, has that RNG S2 and DJB cleanses, and it looks like my opponent's kind of like pivoting to a more standard playstyle with like SCROL. So I take this chance to go for Amid and its Sylvan Sage Vivian, and I was thinking of drafting like Amid and DJB a lot together because they cover each other's weaknesses a little bit, where Amid gives a lot of tempo and cleanses, and DJB also pushes and cleanses. So a lot of the time people just kind of give up banning one of the two and actually ban one of the DPSs, and I find that a little bit more comfortable because then you can like actually save your DJB S3 if you need to, and Amid actually gives attack buff, which is pretty nice. My opponent goes for the Landy Rand here, and I'm like very unconcerned about Rand because Aiden shouldn't die to this Rand, and Sylvan Sage Vivian just in general doesn't care. And I picked Bryceria as a force ban, you know, just because Bryceria has reach for both their DPS and can reveal Landy to get like eviscerated by the Aiden. So yeah, my opponent's Rand does go first, which isn't too surprising because my Amid's more of a mid-speed unit right now at around, how much is it? Oh, 285. 285, that's the speed I'm running Amid at, just because I use her to outspeed like turn 2 players. No, I don't use her to cleave with because I just find that gear a lot more universal on Celius right now. Rand does rip his S3, and luckily Aiden does dodge, and Rand doesn't RNL us 50 times till we die, so that's pretty good. So we're able to push up immediately with Amid here, and I decide to give the attack buff to Sylvan Sage Vivian just because, you know, Aiden already has her stuff, and this will allow me to blow up the Stenny behind mitigation, hopefully. And just because I don't want this Landy like potentially living and going back into Guiding Light, and they somehow managed to kill my Sylvan Sage Vivian or whatever, I just decide to S3 immediately into Landy, blow her up, and then just press Sylvan Sage Vivian S3 and hopefully blow the enemy team up. But, you know, like Escort being a very strong buff allows Stenny to survive, but it's fine because my DJB should be able to outspeed my Sylvan Sage Vivian, and even if Sylvan Sage Vivian does get stunned here, DJB can actually kill his team with barrier inversion if I like really have to. So yeah, I think this might be a little bit bullying because a subscriber told me later in the Discord that this person actually didn't have options to deal with me, so I felt kind of bad. But like, you know,
are we the baddies?
it's not, I didn't know at the time, but like in hindsight it's like kind of oof. But yeah, as always, if you like want to support the channel, consider liking, subscribing, leaving a comment, maybe doubly so if you don't like my content, because if you think about it, the more people see my content, the more people that will also not like my content. So like in a big brain kind of way, you support my haters by also supporting me, so you should do that. Anyway, yeah, my opponent bans Conquer Ilias, so I was pretty like bored about it, so I decided to pick Amid as an aggressive opener just because like my opponent's bans in like Lua, Conquer Ilias just like kind of like signal that maybe they don't like this kind of aggressive playstyle. And their picks basically cement that they're going to take turn 2 or they're going to concede turn 1 just because like hand guy isn't contesting anything, and it's even less likely that APOC's going to contest it. So I picked Flitica here just because Flitica, you know, is pretty she's like Lua light for turn 2 players, where basically like if you don't outspeed her, she's actually very difficult to deal with. So we're doing that. But something that I actually failed to recognize here is that my opponent is the he was in the world championships last year, and I get too comfortable. Like especially people with meta chasing, what's it called? People who are like meta slaves like I am. Like when you throw units that we aren't familiar with, I'm stuck going like, well, what the fuck is this? Like, and it's exactly how I feel with F10A milim. I got way too comfortable and thought that my opponent was picking like a slow milim. But if you think about it, why would you pick milim into Faithless Litica C Pavel unless you were really confident in your ability to outspeed? And what do you know? This is like a 290, 300 milim. And like, goddamn, like, can this Mage Frenzy please go away from me? But yeah, with the souls, they're basically able to kill my Faithless Litica, and now hand guy is able to go and do his shit. So I'm pretty much doomed. And so I was looking for the Mercedes cry emote, but I think I got a little too cocky. I think I should have picked something in the last slot, like an Assassin Sid, and then just let the F10A through, or maybe even like a designer a little bit, and let the F10A through, because it would have been something else. But this is something I should have seen coming, especially since I know from last season a few players in like Legend do really like their ultra fast milims to snipe off like Lycas and stuff. But this was kind of a short-sighted on my part. Honestly, I don't know why I'm playing this out, because I don't think there's a way that I conceivably win this game, because there's no way I'm killing this APOC with this attack down on Commander Pavel. And even if I do, milim finishes off my Aiden and Steny in the next few turns, on top of like a Tywin's bullshit. But you know, I was hoping like maybe this kills APOC and we have a chance, but no, it's looking pretty doomed. C Pavel goes down here because mine's not on Guiding Light. Not that it would have mattered even if it was on Guiding Light anyway, but yeah, I was thoroughly put in my place by an Epic 7 World Championship contestant. But like, you know, it's a learning experience. I now know that like if people like last pick their milim, like that milim is like 290, 300 speed, and I really don't want to contest that unless it's with like Conquerlius. So my only hope for this match is if I kill milim here and my Aiden's actually able to lap around and kill this APOC with an S1. But as you will see, that is not the case, and I don't think milim, I don't think my Aiden's going to survive this hit from Milim, even on a miss. And then milim's S2 procs on Death Broken Steny and promptly finishes her off too. So kind of an L. We got outdrafted really hard, but that's okay. It's all a learning experience. And it's also like early in the season. It literally doesn't matter. But that's what I mean about like climbing in preseason really hard, because like normally people like the last opponent should be like in Legend already, or like at least really high Emperor, which I don't go too often into. Like normally I loiter around like rank 500 to like rank 1000, so like I face people like me who are like copers, and that's like really easy, because or it's I wouldn't say it's easy, but like it's easier for me. But whatever, we ride. Just a small setback, and again, it's like early in the season. Like I don't think anyone's even made it to like Emperor yet, due to the point climb being very hard. But yeah, that is something that I will have to unpack my trauma from. But again, my opponent first picks Conquerlius, quite rude, I might add. So I decided to pick DJB here just because, you know, DJB Aiden, just because like it discourages a lot of the aggression. They go for like hand guy Flitica, so I guess they're like playing more of a standard lineup. And I'm like, bet this is where I become the aggressor. This is where I'm the most comfortable. Or like I should be in theory. But you will find out that I needed to do a bit more playtesting in RTA. But my opponent picks Yola here just for some mitigation because like they recognize that I'm now the aggressor. And just because Yola is the only mitigation that actually can deal with Aiden like by herself if necessary. And they last pick what's her face, Celine. And normally this Celine wouldn't have been an issue, but you will find out that this Celine becomes a giant issue in like half a second. So I decide that like I don't want my opponent to have Vigor. Vigor is really annoying and I don't want to deal with it. They ban Faithless Litica just because, you know, it makes sense. Because like they picked Celine to counter non-attack skills. But yeah, we go into the next match. And I was thinking that I would just press my DJB buttons and then it would just go into, what's her face? BBK, and I wouldn't care. But if you notice on the speed scale, this BBK is like really slow, even for my BBK. And it's because my BBK is missing her boots because I gave them to Giselle because I was like trying out Giselle on placements for a little bit. And then another thing is that my Aiden is currently on Team Imprint right now because of like previous matches. So what should have happened is that my Aiden, if my BBK wasn't highest attack, my Aiden should have been highest attack. So Aiden would have taken the S2 from Celine, hopefully evaded, and then pushed up above Celine thanks to her S2 evasion, but none of those things happened. So Steny dies. And so now we just like lose because this BBK is not solo DPSing a team without her boots. We couldn't actually CC the Bryce area before she took a turn either. So it was pretty doomed. But that is something to keep in note, and that is also a flaw in my draft. I think I should have picked something different in the last slot to counter Bryce area a bit more with like CC or whatever. I could have picked, I think that game was like a really good game for Kisei or like Kaorik if I had decided to keep them built. So that's something to keep in mind. I think like keeping one of the two built will be pretty nice, especially since like aim is a thing now. But yeah, that is definitely something I'll have to work on in building this season. But I don't know. Like as I said, the meta like hasn't really shifted a bit. Amid is just one of those standard bullying units, which like everyone that isn't a standard player loves, but she didn't really shake up the meta too much other than like introducing in like Kisei and Ludwig as like premier picks with Amid. But the problem with that is that they can just ban Amid and then Ludwig and Kisei are like kind of like, oh. So that's like not great. But my opponent like first picked Scarowell here. The other most popular first pick from the infographic thing in RTA. And so like I decided to like maybe like go back to what was my main strategy for the most part of last season, before like the end anyway, where I pick Conquer Elias and DJB. And it looks like my opponent is deciding that they want to go more aggressively into my comp. So with like the Amid and Politis pick. So I decide to respond to their aggression by doubling down into my aggression. And I do that by picking Aiden just because Aiden's like a safe DPS and like technically like safe quote unquote, as in like as long as she doesn't get 30%, she's safe. And I decide to go for a, I think I decide to go for either a bridge unit here with Ida, or I go for yeah, I go for actually another speed DPS. So I pick Acid here because Acid is pretty good into Politis at sniping her out, and she can remove the souls from Politis, which is very nice. My opponent then like shifts away from shifts away from the aggressive draft and goes back into more of a standard tank down. Well, like not tank down, but she like bulks up against my draft with Karina, which is like a pretty good choice because Karina basically deletes either of my DPSs with an S3 or with enough like S1s with her artifact, and they pick Senya. So because Senya is like another one of those like RNG factors where she like has like that built-in mitigation, like crit hit resistance mitigation, which is really annoying. I picked Bryceria just because Bryceria can give unbuffable. I picked Bryceria like thinking that my opponent's gonna ban it like almost 10 out of 10 times, which I luckily get right. And so this is gonna be a very interesting match to figure out how I'm gonna kill this team. But starting with the Karina, I think I was thinking about going into the Politis here, but looking at how my opponent didn't have souls, I figured it was just a degen Politis. So we S3 into the Karina, and we unluckily get a counterattack, which also death breaks, which is going to be very painful from this degen Politis. And we luckily are able to get a attack down on everything, and we do get Vigor up. I mostly ignore Politis here just because I'm not too concerned, especially since my Aiden is able to cut. And I decide here that to just kill off the Politis so I can prevent the unbuffables from going up. And because now that we have invincibility on the rest of my units, like they should be safe. And Karinas normally don't have the like raw damage to kill Aiden from the S3 splash, but that S1 plus proc is actually really painful. So that was something I wasn't expecting. And my opponent goes for the strip onto Acid. They don't go for the Arrowwell S3 just because they know I'll barrier inversion it. And so now we have to just go and try to kill this Arrowwell as fast as we can, so she can't actually go for the S3 stun onto my Acid down the line. And just because I know that there's nothing to cleanse off currently, I hold my buttons on DJB some more. We get a lucky dual attack that lets us kill this Arrowwell and allows Acid to cut, but it doesn't matter too much because Acid just gets promptly deleted by a counterattack here by Karina, so that's kind of painful. But it should be fine. I really should be able to survive this S3 splash from Karina on Aiden. And then even if it's DJB plus Celilius, we should be able to grind out the Senya with the like attack downs and CC. So I decided to take this opportunity to push up with my team just so I can lap the Karina and finish her off before we go to the last unit, Senya. There's no point in soul burning Aiden just because like this Karina has, you know, like ER, like she resisted DJB, and DJB honestly has more ER than Aiden. We go for the soul burn onto Celilius just so we can get the what's it called? Oh, continue redirect provoke. Karina S1s Aiden. Luckily she does survive even though I think she gets hit. We S2 just for soul generation and just because I don't know, I was trying to get the blind on Senya and like hope maybe like she wouldn't provoke, but in hindsight it would have been better to hold it just so I can like barrier invert Senya as like pitiful barrier whenever that happens. But it looks like this Karina doesn't have ER because my DJB stuns, which is kind of weird, but like whatever, we finish her off. And now that it's only DJB, now that it's only Senya left against like my DJB and Celilius, and like now that like even Aiden made it through, like we should be fine, especially since the amount of sustain from DJB's S1 is crazy. And yeah, we are luckily able to grind my opponent down. I think I made a mistake too. I think I should have S2'd this Senya, because if the Senya actually did provoke my Celius there, it could have been pretty bad. But, you know, we get a Justice critical strike on Senya at the end, and we're able to win this match. So that's like pretty lucky. Can't forget the AOL messenger super long leg when you win a match for some reason. I think it got like really bad once they introduced the arena sharing to the guild, which is like kind of strange. So that's kind of a fault with the technology, but what can you honestly do, you know? We're queuing up for the next match, and yeah, I'm kind of hoping that there's something like big over the horizon, at least in terms of the meta. Like, I think the last balance change really didn't do anything. Like, I guess you see a lot more A times picked from like turn 2 players that are like choosing to bulk down just because, like, you know, the AoE cleanse, the team-wide ER ignoring stuns, really annoying. But other than that, there isn't like very much of a meta shift, which I didn't like. Like, who's picking Mui? Arguably, Melissa got worse, so that's something to keep in mind too. But yeah, I picked like DJB Aimant just because like there's like 2 popping Soul Weavers against Conquer Lilius. My opponent basically concedes that they're resigned to turn 2, and so I am more than happy to abuse that fact. So I pick a Aiden here just because, like, you know, like as I said, like you see the last match where they picked like multiple counters into Aiden and she was still able to put in work just because I had multiple fast openers that allowed her to cycle over and over again. But that's basically what we did. We picked Steny just because she's a safe DPS and single target, and I realized that my opponent and I weren't in challengers, so we didn't get double pre-bans, so that was kind of an L. But I decided that I didn't really care about this Belian because Aiden could hopefully provide some shielding from Belian, and I could honestly hold Steny S3 to like stun it down the line or something. Like, I don't know. I had a plan in my mind. I thought they would ban Steny just in case I banned their Belian, but I guess they didn't like Bryce area, which is like pretty understandable. But by the looks of it, my opponent does not have immunity on any of their units, which is like very relatable. I definitely agree with that. Immunity is an overrated set. I go for the stun onto Belian since she's free, and this means that like she can't counter me with Elbrus or whatever. Due to me having attack damage buff and crit damage buff, it means that Karina is able to cut, but it looks like Aim actually pushed up my DJB so far ahead that we're able to get a barrier inversion value for some additional chip damage, which is pretty nice. And so now I decide to push up with DJB here, and I think I want to go into this Mercedes just so I can... Oh, just kidding. I decide to finish off the Belian so I can build up souls and, you know, prevent the reach from getting to my Steny, because what I neglected to think about during the drafting phase is that hand guy cleanses, so the stun wouldn't stick to Belian anyway. So it's in my best interest to just finish off Belian as soon as possible so she can't bring her specific brand of bullshit to my team. My opponent decides to actually hold their S3 for when my opponent is out of invincibility, and that S1 actually does a lot of damage. But luckily the counter means that we're able to finish off this Mercedes before she gets a turn, so she actually doesn't have attack buff anymore, which is, I think, is pretty important, because I think with attack buff she might have had a good chance of killing my Steny. No, we had skill though, so we were safe, but like, you know, it's just nice to have. So we're able to finish off this Mercedes, and at this point I don't think my opponent can actually do enough damage to kill me. Like, my Aiden dies because, like, of course she does. Like, what else is she gonna do? But now it is just 2 really fast Soul Weavers helping to cycle my Hyper Carry Steny. And this is a situation that I've been in like tons of times before. So I'm pretty confident in my ability to win this. So we're just straight chilling. We're just spamming our S1s, I guess, until we're able to cycle back into Stenny's S3 and do enough damage to finish off Karina, or aim at S2, S3, whichever one comes first. And that's what I like about being like an aggressive playstyle, is that in aggressive playstyles, like the games rarely go to like Frenzy like 4, if I'm being really honest. Like most games, in my experience, end before Frenzy 3, or like at Frenzy 3, which I like because when I played Standard, a lot of these matches would come down to like one bruiser versus one bruiser. Like I think a few seasons ago, it was like Hand Guy versus APOC, or like APOC versus Landy, or like something equally unfun where they're just like sitting there whacking each other with S1s for multiple turns, which I really did not enjoy. But this Karina is like hella tanky because it survived so many steady S1s in a row, but they finally go for the S3, but without defense buff, it's just not able to do enough damage. And I think they actually missed on my DJB because the splash didn't happen at all. So I think that was a bit of a gear gap at the end. But that is the nature of preseason. Like I get hit with E7 World Championship contestant, and then the next game I like kind of gear gap my opponent, because I think that game would have been very difficult if my opponent had like ER somewhere in its builds, or like the gear score for like ER on Karina, or like immunity on Belian. But that is the nature of preseason. What can you do? So I think this is going to be the final match of this video, just because like I think 30 minutes like the limit for RTA for me at the current moment, just because, you know, preseason is dull and there's nothing new about it. So until there's something new that happens, I think I'm not too hyped to play too much RTA. So for my last video, I do go for my guilty pleasure of first picking Conquer Elias. My opponent picks SCRO, which is like a pretty standard answer to Conquer Elias, just because like it's so good against aggressive play. And now we just wait for his draft and we will respond in turn. Oh yeah, also, I think my guild life is looking for new members. If you are in like or around the Emperor tier, I think they want you, ? You can int in Guild Wars. I int in Guild Wars, so it's not like that serious of a Guild War guild. The Discord is really active, and what else? Yeah, the Discord is really active. Like there's a lot of fun people in the community, even though they can be like dually and bully you for your Celius. We have people like Uni, Glue7, which is like a Twitch streamer. Like they're really chill. You should check them out. Like they were called Block Eddie before, or like whatever. And that's like fun. But we have a legend finisher, so they could help you in RTA. I'm there. Like what more could you want? And yeah, so my opponent picked Aiden, so I decided to pick DJB Stenny just for the good, you know, for the barrier inversion, and just because Stenny's like a good standard DPS that's also good into Aiden, just because she can proc the S2 and then hide behind the other units and S1 her down eventually. I picked Bryceria here just because Bryceria is really good into Aiden and APOC, because she has hit chance for Aiden and prevents the revive on APOC, and also death breaks her, so she dies. I'm not really loving this Archdemon Mercedes unit. I will say this again. I've said this and I'll say this again. If you pick Archdemon, you're a bad person. My opponent last picks Ran, and my units are currently not in the state where if Conquer Lace gets banned and Ran gets through, my Steny has a pretty good chance of dying to the Ran S3, so I'm kind of forced to ban it. But it looks like they actually go for the ban onto the Steny just because like Bryceria and Straze are kind of like one and done, like pump and go. What's something called? Like they're just like they have their S3 and they aren't as impactful. Like whereas Steny's like really threatening throughout the match. That's what I was trying to say. But it shouldn't matter. I think I will cripple his team hard enough that it shouldn't be a big problem that my team doesn't really have like a good turn 2. We go for the barrier inversion because again we're aiming for everything to die within the first turn or get severely crippled to the point where they should die in turn 2. So we push up with everything. Straze goes first because he's speed tuned to be ahead of my. He's just speed tuned to be faster. He's actually my fastest DPS unit, like pure DPS unit. This APOC like explodes due to the damage from the Death Pen from Steny. Steny, I'm too used to using Steny. And then now we just go for the Bryceria S3. We luckily do not get a counterattack from this Archdemon Mercedes, but I don't think it matters too much. I think I did way too much damage to his team, and I can just feasibly just S1 down his team, and then my opponent does agree, and then they decide to forfeit out. But yeah, that is the video for today. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.